Don't mind her. She lives off our parents. Can't hold a job. My brother Ethan said it loudly enough for every man in the tailor shop to hear. I stood behind him, holding my sleeves down over my wrists. Then his best man, Marcus, glanced at my hand. His smile disappeared. He had seen the scar. He whispered one word. Ranger. 20 minutes later, the fitting room door opened, and my husband walked in. But he wasn't alone. 130. My name is Claire Morgan. For most of my family, I was the disappointment. Ethan was the successful son, the real estate developer with a downtown Chicago condo, a new BMW, and a wedding everyone had been talking about for months. I was the quiet sister who had supposedly never figured life out. What they didn't know was that I had spent 6 years serving in the army. I had deployed overseas. I had carried people out of places they weren't supposed to survive. And 3 years earlier, I had left the service after an operation that left a scar running from my wrist towards my forearm. I never talked about it. Not because I was ashamed, because some memories are too heavy to turn into dinner table stories. After leaving the army, I married Daniel. He was the only person who knew everything. We lived outside Denver, Colorado, where he worked as a civil engineer, and I ran a small outdoor survival business. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were, until Ethan's wedding week. He had asked me to help with the wedding arrangements. Then, at the men's fitting, he apparently decided I was something to be embarrassed about. Marcus stared at my wrist. Claire, he said quietly, where did you get that? I pulled my sleeve down. Old injury. Marcus didn't blink. That's not an ordinary injury. Ethan laughed. She's always been dramatic. Marcus slowly reached for his phone. What are you doing? Ethan asked. Marcus didn't answer. He simply walked outside. And 20 minutes later, the door opened. 32:30. Daniel stood there. My husband. But the man beside him was someone I hadn't expected to see again. Colonel James Walker. My former commanding officer. Ethan's smile vanished. Marcus stepped forward. Sir, I recognized the scar. Colonel Walker looked directly at me. Claire, we need to talk. My stomach tightened. Daniel immediately came to my side. He didn't ask what was happening. He just took my hand. That was Daniel. He never needed every detail before choosing my side. Colonel Walker looked around the room. 3 years ago, Claire was part of a recovery operation in Afghanistan. Ethan swallowed. I shook my head. Colonel, please. He stopped. I didn't want the past dragged into my brother's wedding. But then Marcus said something that changed everything. The operation you're talking about, wasn't that the one where Captain Morgan saved 11 soldiers? Silence. Ethan stared at me. Captain? I looked at the floor. Yes. His expression changed. For the first time in his life, my brother looked at me without superiority. He looked confused, then ashamed. But Colonel Walker wasn't finished. Claire wasn't just there, he said. She was the reason 11 men came home alive. Daniel squeezed my hand. I whispered, I never wanted anyone to know. Colonel Walker nodded. I know. Then his eyes moved toward Ethan. But there's something else you need to know. 30-330. Ethan looked nervous. What? Colonel Walker pulled a folder from his briefcase. Inside was a photograph. I recognized it immediately. A military transport vehicle, smoke behind it, and me standing beside a wounded soldier. Ethan stared at the picture. That can't be you. It is. Marcus looked at Ethan. You called her someone who can't hold a job. Ethan's face turned red. But I wasn't interested in humiliating him. I had spent years learning that revenge rarely heals anything. Then Daniel spoke. Claire doesn't tell people what she did because she doesn't want praise. He looked at Ethan. She doesn't even tell me everything. I turned toward him. Daniel. He smiled softly. I know enough. For one beautiful second, I felt safe. Then my phone buzzed. One message. None number. We know where your Hughes band works. My blood ran cold. I showed Daniel. His expression changed instantly. Claire, who is this? I don't know. Another message appeared. Yo should have stayed quiet. The room suddenly felt too small. Colonel Walker took the phone from my hand. "Everyone leave this building." Ethan looked terrified. "Why?" Colonel Walker stared at him. "Because this isn't about the wedding anymore." 3:30-4:30. We drove to Daniel and my hotel in silence. Chicago's streets blurred outside the windows. Daniel kept looking at me. "Tell me what you're not telling me." "I swear, I don't know who sent those messages." He believed me, but I could see fear in his eyes. Then he said something that broke my heart. "If someone from your past is back, I need to know." I whispered, "I left that life behind for you." Daniel's voice softened. "I know," he touched my cheek, "and that's why I'm staying." Suddenly, the hotel lights went out. The entire building went dark. Someone screamed downstairs. Daniel grabbed my hand. "Stay behind me." A security alarm began ringing. Then a door slammed somewhere in the hallway. Colonel Walker pulled his phone out. "Everybody stay together." We moved toward the emergency exit, and then we saw it. A small envelope taped to our hotel room door. My name was written across it, Claire Morgan. Inside was a single photograph. My old military unit. On the back were 4 words. "Yo left one behind." I stopped breathing, because I knew exactly what that meant. 4C-530. 3 years earlier, during my final operation, 11 soldiers had been evacuated. But 12 had entered. The 12th was Sergeant Noah Reed. He had disappeared during the chaos. Officially, he was presumed dead. I had spent years believing I had failed him. But the photograph changed everything. "Colonel," he stared at it, his face hardened. "No." Daniel looked between us. "What?" Colonel Walker finally said, "Noah Reed was never confirmed dead." My knees nearly gave out. "Then why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because we couldn't locate him." The room went silent. Then my phone rang. "Private number." I answered. A man's voice whispered, "You remember me, Claire?" I froze. "Who is this?" "You carried me when everyone else ran." Daniel grabbed my shoulder. I knew that voice. "Noah?" A pause, then, "Yes." My heart pounded. "Where are you?" "Not far." Then he said something I never expected. "This isn't about me." "What do you mean?" "Your brother knows." I looked at Ethan. He had been silent the entire time. His face was pale. I whispered, "Ethan?" He looked at me, and for the first time, he couldn't meet my eyes. 5-6:30. "Ethan," I said, "what did you do?" He shook his head. "Nothing." Colonel Walker stepped forward. "Then explain why your company has been transferring money to a shell corporation connected to Noah Reed." Everyone went silent. Ethan finally broke. "I didn't know who it was." "You paid them?" Daniel asked. Ethan looked at me. "They contacted me 6 months ago." "Why?" "Because they had information about you." My chest tightened. Ethan admitted the truth. Someone had discovered my military records and threatened to expose classified details unless Ethan paid them. He had been terrified. Instead of coming to me, he kept paying. But the payments had grown, and when he ran out of money, they threatened his wedding. "That's why you called me useless?" I asked. He started crying. "I was scared." "You humiliated me because you were scared?" "I thought if everyone believed you were nobody, they'd stop looking at you." I stared at my brother. For years, I thought Ethan hated me. But beneath his cruelty had been something uglier, fear. Then Noah called again. "This isn't finished." The line went dead. Suddenly, Colonel Walker's phone rang. He listened for 10 seconds, then looked at me. "We found him." 6:30, 7:30. Noah was waiting at an abandoned warehouse near the Chicago River. We arrived with federal investigators and military security. I stepped inside first. A man emerged from the darkness. Older, thinner, but alive. "Noah," he looked at me. "You carried me out." I nodded. "You saved my life." "No," I whispered. "You survived." He smiled. "I survived because you refused to leave me." Then he explained everything. He had spent years helping investigators uncover a network that had been stealing military technology and laundering money through American companies. Ethan had unknowingly become their target, and I had become their leverage. The messages weren't just threats, they were warnings. The investigation ended months later with multiple arrests. Ethan's wedding was postponed. But something unexpected happened. He came to my house alone. No expensive suit, no excuses. Just my brother. He stood on the porch and said, "I was wrong." I didn't answer, he continued. "You were never a failure." My eyes filled with tears. "I know." He looked down. "I don't expect you to forgive me." I opened the door. "Good." He looked surprised, then I added, "But you can start earning it." He nodded. And for the first time, he didn't argue. 7:38, ending. Months later, Ethan and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. Not because the past disappeared, because we finally stopped pretending it didn't exist. Daniel and I moved into a small house near the mountains. Sometimes, when I wake up at night, I still remember the smoke, the shouting, and the weight of someone depending on me to survive. But now I also remember Daniel beside me, his hand in mine, his voice saying, "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore." And maybe that was the real victory. Not the medals, not the secrets. Not proving my brother wrong. It was finally finding people who saw me as more than my scars. Because sometimes the person everyone calls a failure is the one who survived what nobody else could. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below.